Welcome to Pie the Corner. My name's Pat.
And I'm Shane, and this is Pie the Corner.
This is Pie the Corner.
How's it going today, Pat?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Chilling here on a Sunday, November 8th. I guess the election was called yesterday, and I've been looking forward to this conversation even more than I was looking forward to our last conversation, where we kind of gave our thoughts and speculation on the election, which is, obviously you're treading on thin ice when you do stuff like that. You can't predict the future, but it was an absolutely fun exercise anyway. But today we get to talk about, it's our 2020 election wrap up.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
It's going to be pretty free form. We'll talk about whatever comes to mind. It's one of the things I wanted to have this conversation was, obviously I watched some of the election coverage on mainstream networks, and I almost never watch those networks. We talked about that before. And one of the things that annoys me so much about it, and I know it annoys all your average Americans too, is when these pompous pricks come on the TV and they proclaim to tell you what this all means. It's so lame, man, because they don't know what they're talking about, but they pretend like they know what they're talking about, and it's quite pretentious. So I think this kind of provides an alternative viewpoint to that, where we're not making any claims to what this means other than, thoughts and reflections on, all the things that happened last week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think what it means to us is
Yeah.
mainly, and some people can, um, go, oh, that makes sense. I think that too, or they can go, that's completely wrong. Whatever. That's what's great about these kind of conversations.
So let's start this off with a question. I'll put you on the spot here. Are you happy?
Well, that was a similar question I was thinking of starting, which was how do you feel? Um,
Well, I went
I,
first, didn't I?
yeah, well, I'm fine with that. I am I happy? I don't know if
Well,
this is just my anxiety kicking in or what, but I was relieved
mm-hmm.
for a little while, but I started to kind of feel the weight of what this is going to mean as far as the next 75 days until the inauguration. And what does this mean for, what's Trump going to do now? So am I happy? I'm relieved that this immoral situation that I feel like he brought on and brought into our country is coming to an end. But then I realized, well, it's not over yet. There's still a long. I mean, it's like this is my thought today about this was, there was during 2020. There's always this feeling, at least for me, and I'd say some other people I've talked to, that when we get to 2021, things will be better, or when the election's done, things are going to feel better if Trump loses, or maybe on the other side if Biden loses. And then I had this realization that it doesn't work like that. There's no like crystalline moment where it's just like, oh, relief, and everything's great now, because there's a lot of stuff going on, you know, even in the Democratic Party that gives me some pause, because it's like now there's this consolidation of power and things like that. So this is all a long answer to say, like, I am leaning towards cautiously optimistic,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I do have some trepidation moving into this next 2.5 months. First will be the next step along the way, and then whatever happens after that.
Right. I guess you're right. I should have asked you more clearly how you feel, and I appreciate you sharing those thoughts with me. Um, I feel that same sense of relief. You have to put one foot in front of the other, and to get where I want to go, the very first step is removing Trump from office. Okay. even more so than putting Biden into office. Though that's what we had to do to take Trump out of office, is put Biden into office. So I consider that a success, and I'm pleased that that happened. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have not myself felt happy at all, because I, like you, I'm a realist and I'm a pragmatist and I'm a big picture guy and I'm always forward thinking. And so I have some anxiety. I think you used the same term, because I know how the American voter thinks and works and acts, and we've seen it in the past. We put everything into this election, both sides. About 150 million people voted, and I think you asked me last time we hung out. You wonder how many eligible voters there are in America, and I looked it up. There's about 237 million eligible voters in America. So I did the math: 150 million divided by 237 million. 63% of eligible voters voted in this election, which is huge. Normally it's about 50%. The highest it ever was, I think, was 80% when Grover Cleveland was elected, like 120 years ago. So that's a big deal. My point is, we put a lot into this election, the classic proverbial blood, sweat, and tears. So many people were active in voter registration drives, phone banking, and stuff that have never been politically active before. But the way Americans think is, once the election is over, they think their job is done, and then they abandon the movement. And they did the same thing during the Obama election. He organized this huge activist coalition that basically elected him, and then they didn't do another thing uh, afterwards. So I'm worried that that lesson hasn't been learned. I'm cautiously optimistic, because what I'm seeing is a lot of messaging related to, our job is not over. Don't give up the fight. Hold their feet to the fire. Let's win this Georgia election. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take endless vigilance, pressuring these people. Um, Biden's not going to do anything for us per se unless we force him to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how things work. We basically have to force them to do the right thing, okay? And so I'm gonna take a wait and see approach to see what happens as far as that goes. I'm gonna stay active in my own way, whether it's this podcast or talking with people, or I often call my legislatures, and a lot of
Yeah.
people don't do that. I think they think it's a waste of time. I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it's important. And that's one way you can get your point across to these people and pressure them. And the things that I really think they need to do are kind of pandemic related. One's immediate stimulus. Two is healthcare for all. And three, let's just call it my 3-point plan, is a huge national infrastructure jobs program to help all the people that are struggling with employment right now, but also to help with a renewal of America, because this is long overdue. And these are bipartisan issues that could easily be passed if anybody had guts and leadership. And I think that's what we just need to continue to push towards, and not frame it as socialism. I think people are for those three things. And those are the three most important. Oh, so anyways, so I made that point. Let's I keep seeing this headline on Twitter today that says, I didn't read the article because it's such a bullshit headline. It says, Biden is no FDR, but he could be an LBJ. Oh, whoopee, whoopee! This is great. And then another thing that's kind of, I know this quote probably came out of the same article, is Chuck Schumer. He's just going out and announcing that he wants Biden's first 100 days to be an FDR-like plan. Do you believe that for 1 second?
Not even close. Not even close.
Okay. So that's why we need to keep our attention on them, and we need to either force Schumer to change for the first time in his life or replace him.
Yeah. And Pelosi.
Yeah.
Um, I think you brought up some just really great points because those are some of the things I was thinking of. Is we are now fighting apathy, and I think the way that they need to fight apathy right now is messaging and how they frame what they really are going to do. Now, again, like he comes out and says something like that, which Chuck Schumer, everyone knows Chuck Schumer, and they know Pelosi, and they know that's just total bullshit. They're going to, I mean, my take on this right now is we have these two seats up in, in the Senate that are still up in the air. I almost think that they would hope that the Republicans win those seats because then they have an excuse for not doing what they don't want to do anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now they may come out and do like a stimulus plan. Um, and I mean, I agree with all your points on what you think should happen. I think we should have a major stimulus plan, and I don't know. I wouldn't say necessarily it has to match the first one that they did as far as the amount of money, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean something like that where they can, maybe two. I mean, look, if we're just talking about printing fucking money anyways, do it 2 trillion, do 3 trillion, but give it back to small businesses and
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
citizens. Um, so I could see us getting that, but after that, it's going to be a lot of the same shit. I mean, Biden already sounds like he's like, I just want to keep doing what Obama was doing, and the reality is like a lot of people, including people of color, who probably now look. We did have a huge turnout for Biden for women that are black women, but a lot of black men voted for Trump. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of Latinos voted for Trump. And so their idea that, oh, if I vote for a Democrat and I'm going to get something out of it and have some of these major issues that we face fixed, they know that that's not going to happen. That's the other thing is the other concern I have is that they're going to just take this win as a mandate, which is like most Democrats probably ultimately didn't want Biden anyways. The first three races on the whole, in the primaries showed that. So this is really just people were voting against Trump in the aggregate, I think, in the whole. And so it's like, but they're going to take it like, oh, well, we have this mandate to do what Biden's plan is and what Obama's plan was. And it's like, yeah, that was a kind of a corporatist plan and they may come out and say, oh, we're going to have a mask mandate. Yeah, good luck with that. Okay, you might be able to say we're going to have a mask mandate for federal buildings, which maybe that's what the plan is,
Mm-hmm.
but you're all of the same motherfuckers out here that aren't wearing masks now aren't going to wear masks then. Especially now since you just had these huge celebrations where thousands of people were in the street without masks
Mm-hmm.
celebrating Biden. And I'm just saying, like, if you were on that side, you'd be like, oh, I see. So it's fine now. Like you're not going to even come out and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. Let's celebrate, but let's celebrate in a different way. They're going to have all the ammo in the world. Um, but yeah, I think just to kind of crystallize, that's a lot there. But the apathy is really going to be a big fight because we're all so wrapped up in our lives anyways right now,
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it through the virus and through our kids at school or whatever, our businesses going down, that it's going to be like, well, I hope for calm. And it's like, I think some people, that's really all they wanted was just some calm where they didn't have like the gaslighting Twitter shit every day.
Well, one thing that's coming to mind for me is obviously my little 3 point plan. They're big ideas and they're transformative programs. And anybody like me, if somebody proposed what I just proposed, I'd be like, yeah, how are you going to do that? That's basically impossible, especially if McConnell's the opposition, if the opposition leader, because I'm sure he's going to approach Biden just like he approached Obama, whereas his number one goal is to make him a one-term president. He's not going to work with him at all. He's not going to allow anything true. Yeah, it could go that way, but I think the Democrats have nothing to lose because all they do is lose, lose, lose anyway. So why not try something different? And here's another proposal. How about put these ideas out there and say you're for something. I'm for this, I'm for this, and I'm for this. And truly put some pressure on these senators and congressmen to take a stance on these issues. I think that would be a big, big deal.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's one of the reasons why the turnout was so like surprising to Democratic Party leaders was the reality is whatever you think of conservatives or Republicans, they have a platform and they have some beliefs
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that they state that they believe in, whether they do or not. It's remains to be seen. But and then something somebody else said, which really feeds, it kind of goes into what you're saying is I don't even remember where I saw it. Maybe it was Kyle Kalinske or something like that. But it was like no matter what the Democrats do, they're going to be labeled as socialists anyways. Even if it's like John Kasich, they're going to label him as a fucking socialist. So you're right in that sense, you know? I mean, this is the thing that I enjoy about these conversations is you kind of help me keep my mind on the right track because again, I'm like, well, I don't want to, have this really divisive thing, but it's like no matter what, if they do nothing, it's divisive. It's
Mm-hmm.
still like they're doing nothing because they're communists,
But
or
here's
whatever
the
the fuck it
deal.
is.
But here's the deal. That's why I framed it the way I framed it. It's if they just put these ideas out there, then they can be accepted or rejected. But they never even go for it. And I think
Yeah,
that's how things could change.
yeah,
Just press conference and say, this is what we're gonna do. This is what we're for. Call your congressman if you're for the same thing. And I guarantee Democrats and Republicans would call their congresspeople for some of these ideas. Um, we're at a time in America right now. I mean, obviously, we just dodged a bullet by not getting 4 more years of Trump. But if we don't truly make plans for the future, make plans to get us out of this mess, the pandemic, the economic mess that we're in right now, things are going to get way, way, way. This is our moment of reckoning, and that's why I think something might be different this time. AOC has really come out of the last few days and been really bold with her words, and it remains to be seen if she's able to continue with that. It remains to be seen if Pelosi's going to lose her speakership. A lot of things can change. It remains to be seen if Biden's our next president, dude, because he's not our next president until it's certified.
I
Okay.
know. Yeah.
So and I just really, I'm glad I brought that up because that is a fact. Even though it really does seem like Biden won and is going to win, we don't know it until that election is certified. So just to add a little bit more fuel to the anxiety fire.
And what's the date for that? I think it's like December 15th or 13th or something where they
Yeah,
have.
somewhere around there. Yeah.
Um,
Every
yeah.
state has a different date that they have to certify their own election, but beyond that, the federal dates, let's call it mid-December.
Okay. Well, this is true. And this is, again, like, this is why I'm trying to look at this as a step by just take one step at a time here. Let's just get the certification done. And then let's get let's get the inauguration done. And there was a really um, interesting moment during the celebration yesterday, I guess, after Biden and Harris had spoke and they were all and their families were on stage and like a car backfired or some kind of speaker backfired and they were all like jumped like they know some shit. You know what I mean?
Kamala's husband was caught on camera doing the biggest jump. It was like one of those confetti poppers. That's what the noise was, dude.
Hmm.
He jumped like he was scared for his life. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you saw. Did you see that or did you see the media
Yes.
cover
Yeah.
it?
I saw. No,
I
I
saw it.
saw it. Just the video of it.
And you're the first person I've seen bring that up since I saw it with my own eyes. I'm so glad you saw that.
And I mean, dude, it's like they might try to put it off as like, oh, haha, it's kind of, but it's an indicator of their feelings about this situation. In my book, they're expecting some shit to go down, and they thought, I mean, they were probably in that split second moment, like, oh shit, they're gonna kill us all right now.
Okay,
And I mean, I hate to go there, but
no,
it's
you're so spot on because that's where we are, okay, as a country and as a national psyche, okay? Listen to me. Last night when I was watching Biden speak, I had a thought in my head where I was like, hmm, I feel like he could just get shot right now, you
Yeah.
know? And that really was in my head. Like, not like I really think it's going to happen, but it flowed through my head. And then this morning, I start reading the paper and I expect to see, like, Biden's been shot or something. And I don't know how these thoughts creep into my head, dude, but that is the climate of America right now. And they better watch that guy closely.
Yeah. Watch them all closely. So, I mean, like you said, I mean, this is that bring adds a little bit more to the anxiety pile, but um, it's a starting point. I guess it's like,
No,
I
it
guess
is,
when you put it
it
like,
is.
well, this is where we are. Where can we be in say 75 days or whatever it is? I just I feel like there needs to be where it needs to come from is the right. There needs to be people standing up on the right, politicians, the news media, whoever, and just saying like, hey, we're not going to go through this, thing where we're going to keep this conspiracy theory going and blah blah blah. But I'm going to say this: the Democratic side hounded Trump for 3 fucking years about Russia
Hmm.
collusion.
Hmm.
And according to the news and according to the reports, there was nothing there.
Hmm.
So to think that shit's not going to come back on you, and even
Hmm.
if there's no violence, they are going to spend the next 3.5 years going after saying this was a rigged election. This was done by the Chinese Communist Party. These are all Chi-Com, sleeper agents, all this shit that I'm hearing in the past couple of days. And they're not going to give up because, and all that does is it just creates that stalemate of like one part of the country versus the other part. And they're all going to be scared shitless about what's going on and everything that the Democrats want to do. Like any of those party platform things that you talked about are going to be like, here comes the
Hmm.
Chinese
Hmm.
Socialist
Hmm.
Party.
Hmm.
And it's again, this is why, it's if they had just given him the rope to hang himself. Now, if they really thought that there was a legitimate thing there and they researched it for a while and were like, well, probably not nothing there. They probably knew that early on and they just kept fucking going because they're like, we're going to get him. We're going to get him. And I honestly, my feeling on that was all Hillary Clinton being pissed off. Like, there's no way I could have won that election legally,
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
So, but anyways, my point is, had they just given him the rope to hang himself by just letting him be himself over the last 4 years, you would have seen a lot more people probably go, "This guy's a fucking nutcase." But they
Hmm.
keep driving home these theories and making people pissed off, like, "Oh, you're just going after him because he's a conservative, blah blah blah, or whatever." So all I'm saying is like now to have this happen now, where there's, they're not they're claiming fraud and they're going to come up with all these things that are fraudulent, and the Chinese communists changed the computer code on the machines, on the voting machines, and the Democratic it doesn't even fucking matter because it's all it is it just continues this narrative that one side's trying to get the other side's trying to get the other side, and that's I guess my overarching concern is this, like, how's anything going to get done when everything is like suspicious to everybody?
Well, we need to shift towards a more fact-based narrative, fact-based evidence, and Heather Cox Richardson was talking about this. When you're talking to your crazy uncle or your crazy family member, talk with them, tell them, you know, when they say something's incorrect, tell them it's incorrect, and when they insist that it's correct, ask them where they get their information from. And when they tell you where that source, tell them that that's not a credible source. And just we really need to force this idea of fact-based evidence. Uh, and this is going to be a long-term solution. You may be looking at me like I'm crazy, but I'm actually
No.
absolutely serious. We need a fact-based narrative, and Fox News doesn't give that. So you're right. But I just think that it's important to kind of shift gears and realize that everything's not true, dude. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and
and
and the worst case scenario is usually not the real scenario, because that's usually how you get people to go down that road is you give them the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Chinese communist takeover. Well, fuck, man, where can you go from there? I mean, it's like that's the worst thing that's a conservative could think of, right? And I wouldn't want that either. And that would be my argument, was just to say, well, I don't want that shit either. I don't agree with their policies. I mean, this I don't know, man. It's going to be a long haul, and I don't know what this looks like over the next 100 days, or 100 days from January
Yeah,
21st.
right.
Um,
I think it's just gonna be slogging through a whole bunch of nothing, man. Uh, there's no bold leadership in the Democratic Party. Kind of like the way we talked about earlier this week. It was last week. Um, there has been no radical revolutionary change. It's just like the day after the election is exactly the same as the day of the election. Uh, January 20th is going to be pretty much just exactly like where we are right now. We're still going to be in a pandemic. People are still going to be struggling economically. The facts on the ground aren't going to change. So, to my point, nothing's going to change in that next 100 days either. Uh, okay. Do you think one piece of legislation will pass in that 100 days? Like landmark legislation?
I mean, I think the closest they're going to get is a stimulus.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I wouldn't bet my life on it, but
Well, I
because
would.
it depends on how the Senate thing works out. But
Yeah,
yeah,
McConnell says he'd like to see a stimulus passed before the end of the year. We talked about what his last stimulus proposal was. It was
yeah.
half $1 trillion.
Well, and he even said he wanted to go lower than that now.
Yeah, okay.
So
So that's not really going to save anything or anybody. So I guess to your point, Biden's landmark legislation probably will be some kind of pandemic stimulus package. Okay, which is it should be, and that's highly predictable. But what about something that he said he's for, that could be very easily done and it'd be a very, very popular move? What about decriminalizing marijuana?
that would be a big one. I don't know if so. I guess it all goes to priorities and what kind of falls out
But
by
wouldn't
the
you
time
think
we.
he would try to pick some easy victories to gain some momentum and get the people on his side? Or maybe not. Maybe that's
I
too makes too much sense to do
I
it
well
that way.
and I think that that's a good point. It almost makes too much sense that they would just be like, "No, we're not going to do that one." And I think I don't know
Nobody
if that.
would give a shit if they did
And
that.
they would get a lot of support too, and from both sides. But again, that's why I just feel like, oh man, I didn't think about that one, and maybe that is one. I don't know. Maybe I don't know enough about that subject to really comment on it, on how much
Well,
of a
let's
possibility that would be. But I
well,
still, so
let me talk more about that. The thing is about decriminalization of marijuana, it's a civil rights issue. It's a criminal justice issue, much more much more than it is. Yeah, I want to smoke weed, or no, I don't want to smoke weed. It's a criminal justice issue, and as is the case in America, the only people that get caught in the crosshair are the poor. And the poor people are the least equipped to defend themselves against these charges and fees and all this stuff. So it ends up ruining their life, and getting them in the criminal justice system and causing them to lose jobs and all kinds of stuff. That's the reason to decriminalize marijuana, to really show some good faith effort towards these communities of color that just elected you, and especially with this prevailing narrative of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter and everything else, and reforming, just um, a lot of things, reforming a lot of things, and basically leveling the playing field and giving people equal opportunity and stuff. And I'm very passionate about that issue, um, because people need to stop going to jail and getting fined like crazy just for smoking weed, man. It needs to stop. They need to let the people out of jail. They need to erase their records and everything. This needs to be done. America needs to admit that it made a mistake and fix the mistake. And that could be done in the first 100 days easily.
Yeah, I think that's actually, now that you put it in those terms, one of the big narratives about Biden was, I mean, it's not even a narrative, it's the truth. He was one of the authors of the crime bill that started criminalizing acts like this in more severe ways. And he said in one of the debates, like, that was a mistake. And so this would go a long way to say, this is me trying to make good on that
Oh, could
mistake.
you imagine? Oh, that's like a Hallmark movie, man.
I
That's
mean, it would sell
awesome.
as hell. It'd be like, I made a mistake there, and this is me starting to fix that mistake. We
Uh-huh.
need to decriminalize marijuana so that people can get their, convictions wiped, their felony convictions, whatever, their misdemeanor convictions. I mean, they're not going to get their fines back, but yeah, and start that process of healing of that. That would be a great way to put it. And I think it would be a powerful moment, like you said. Boy, I hope somebody's got his ear, because I don't know, man. Like, Kamala Harris has been known to be pretty hard on crime. So
But I'll give her a pass. Let's backtrack just a little bit. This might surprise you, but I'll give Biden a little bit of a pass for the 94 crime bill because hindsight's 2020, and you have to really look back and remember where America was in the late 80s and early 90s during the so-called crack epidemic. And
crack.
people were scared shitless and were demanding that something be done about this problem. And every Democrats had to outflank the Republicans back then. This is where this all started. They had to be tougher on crime than the Republicans, and that's where this whole Clinton neoliberalism came from. And so, it's kind of like when Democrats go to war, they go stronger. When they fight crime, they go stronger.
Yeah.
It's to prove that they're tougher than the Republicans because all they get are Democrats are soft on crime, especially throughout the whole 60s, redoing everything and trying to rehabilitate people instead of throw the book at them. And so that's where that came from, okay? So let's just really be honest with history here. Obviously, the bill had a lot of unforeseen consequences, and it really sucked for a lot of people. So let's hope he makes that right. Now, Kamala, on the other point, she's just an opportunistic politician. And once again, in that attorney general role, especially as a black woman, you have to constantly prove that you're a tough badass and you're not soft on crime. I don't necessarily think that she really has that much of a position. I think she is ambitious.
Did what she needed to do.
She got to where she, whether it's sucking Willie Brown's dick or whatever, or sleeping her way to the top, to having a good run for president and becoming vice president of the United States. She wants power, dude, and she'll do whatever she thinks is popular. So that said, let's get back to how popular decriminalization is. But they're scared, dude. They're so scared to do anything.
Yeah.
They don't want to rock the boat, man.
Well, they want to. I mean, this is the other thing that this call for unity now. It's like, dude, you're like, so you've missed that boat.
But you know what? He had to say
well,
it.
He
And
did,
it
and
nice
I'm glad he
see
did.
it.
I'm glad
nice
he
to
did.
see it.
I mean, look, this is the thing is I wish it wasn't as empty as it probably is. I mean, because it is something that needs to be said. And anyways, we've talked about it a lot. Just over the last 4 years, it's like there's a tone that the president sets, and if that tone can take over and make even like some of those hardened hearts kind of be like, okay, well, at least he's not going up now. And I would bring this up because there's some things that do concern me that I don't want to happen. I don't want them to do. And one of them is this going after right-wing voices and trying to silence people and shit. And like, you lost, so therefore dude, the First Amendment is so important to keep solid. Now, do I have a specific example? There are a couple examples of some conservative voices who've been silenced on their platforms online. And, maybe some were legitimate, but some weren't. It was more like, well, somebody claimed you said this and you're this. So the First Amendment is something I really hope they don't go after in the guise of we need to have justice for this group or that group. Because again, like the reality is about that is it can get very dangerous and it's a slippery slope when you start to manage people's thoughts and feelings and words. And as much as it might be repugnant to hear somebody say some shit that you don't like about a certain group, they have a right to say it. And as long as they're not inciting violence, they have a right to say that. And I think, there might be some ideas that like, well, it's kind of a veiled incitement by just being against it. But it's like, man, look, the same thing that pisses the left off about the right pisses the right off about the left. And what I mean by that is the right's pissed off because the left is like, okay, all white people are racist. And most of the right would consider them, are in that group. So they think like, well, you're just telling me I'm racist for no reason.
And let me give you another example. The left is telling the right, okay, you have to be for gay marriage. You have to be for multi-sex bathrooms. And even though that may be the right way of thinking, you can't tell somebody that they have to be for that. And that's where the left loses everybody. And I've been seeing more and more people talk about this. And I never thought about it quite that way because I'm for justice. But you can't demand it. You can't just say, okay, this is right and you have to be this way. And that's where it's a big problem with the left, dude. It's a big problem with the left.
It's the legal compelling of something is the problem. And because it's like, look, man, I mean, one thing you have to say about our country is that you have a right to be an asshole who hates everybody. And it's like, you shouldn't. And again, to your point, this is why like, and the left is like, oh, they're anti-abortion or they are, what are some other criticisms of the right? Like, they're anti-abortion, they're anti-immigrant, they're anti-drugs, they're pro, law and order and all this shit. But it's like, well, and again, I'm not for that stuff necessarily, but I can understand like why they would say like, well, I mean, why is it fair that you come after us for that, but we can't come after you for the shit we don't like about you? And again, this is where it's like the far leftist voices and far right wing voices are the ones that get heard. Where most people in the middle are just like, dude, I just want to go to my job and take care of my family and be left alone, essentially. Because I don't know, a lot of people don't have interactions with the police all the time. A lot of people don't have to go into situations where they feel uncomfortable. I mean, most people stay in their own little world. But I don't know. I don't know if this is even making sense, but it to me, it just is important that we don't go like start having like these like, okay, we're going to get you because you supported Trump. Because it's like, look, man, that many people voted for him, even more than the last election. You've got to get some learning from that. You've got to find out what that is and try and either fix what you can or accept it.
Well, we're running into this very difficult situation, right? We already ran smack dab into the middle of it where, you brought up that free speech issue, and a lot of the places where speech is being censored, if you can even use the term censored, I'm not sure if you can, but it's certainly being stifled, is these huge multinational corporations like Twitter and Facebook. Just let's stick with those two. And the first thing people say is that freedom of speech is not protected if you own the platform. Okay, that's reasonable enough. The problem with that is that all of our platforms have become private entities these days, and our constitutional rights don't seem to apply to these private entities. And it's almost like they offloaded these responsibilities from the government and the courts onto these private platforms so they could break the Constitution. And I would really need to think about that a lot more, lot longer than I did right now. But there's something fishy, dude. There's something going on there. Because to your point, we don't want that. And it is a slippery slope. And it is already happening right now. And both of us disagree with it. If you don't like what somebody's saying, unfollow them, scroll away, get off social media. There's just so many other options than to just silence that speech.
Yeah, and give your viewpoint and try and
because anything you use against your opponents is going to be used against you in an even worse way than you ever did on them or you ever even attended. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, you know, you throw the first punch and then the other person just got hit and they're so freaking angry, they're just going to pummel you. And that's just the way it happens. We don't want that, Pat. We don't
Yeah.
want that.
No, that's it. That's it. And that's my concern is that, all of these, like this idea of like, it's a mandate for this or that. It's like, no, man, some things are got to remain sacred. And man, you put it in such a great way. I mean, it is a way to kind of abdicate responsibility for it and say, well, they're a business, they can do it. And this is the problem with corporatism and an oligarchy and an aristocracy, or
It's the
I guess it's
crux
an
of the
oligarchy
problem. It's the
republic.
crux of the problem worldwide. It's what people are rebelling against. It's the main thing people are rebelling against is we're run. The world is run by corporations these days, and we have no redress. We have no redress, and that's why people are losing their mind. We just got there, Pat. This is the problem. When you get to the point where there's no redress, you have nothing to lose, and you have to start breaking shit.
Yeah. Hey, do you think that the trust, or what do they call it, um, when they want to bust up the company, when it becomes too big, do you think that that's a way?
Antitrust stuff.
Antitrust, yeah. Do you think that that is a good solution for that, or maybe like some people have said, make those things like a utility, like the internet is a utility, and again, yeah, Twitter belongs to somebody. There's a CEO there. Facebook does too, but it's like, dude, there's no other platforms. You can't get your voice heard anywhere else. And I don't know if that's like, well, hey, that's your problem kind of thing, or if it's like, no, like if there's a public space, which Twitter and Facebook, you could argue are a public space for thought and voice, then you have to give them the same freedom of speech that
Well,
anyone else has.
funny enough, I wonder if this issue or these issues will be taken to the Supreme Court, and if they are, I wonder what kind of decision could be handed down. I mean, we have no idea. They could be considered like the public square, and therefore the same rights that you have on the public square, you have on Twitter or Facebook. I
Mhm.
don't know.
Well, and this is the other problem, and that comes with the international corporation, is they deal in more than just our country. So then it's like we can only legislate, obviously, for our own country, but then these other countries are going to be like stuck not getting any. I mean, they may not have it anyways, but I mean, Facebook's everywhere, Twitter's everywhere,
Hmm.
TikTok, if you want to bring up another one. It's a dangerous thing, man, because that's how you clamp down on society and you start changing things in a way that it's happening now. It's a slow burn, right? People don't get it, they don't see it, and they think like, well, they got rid of Alex Jones, good, I don't like Alex Jones, or they got rid of this person, I don't like that person. And then, like you said, eventually they come for you. And it's literally that old axiom of like, when they came for the Jews, I
Hmm.
didn't say anything because I'm not a Jew. When they came for the gypsies, I didn't say anything because I'm not a gypsy. When they came for me, no one came because no one
Hmm.
left. Um, that's what I see in any conglomeration of power, and so like this idea of I, this is the problem with what we've, in a sense, what we've just done. We got Biden, we got rid of Trump, but what is Biden about? A lot of people don't really know. He doesn't have like a really well-known platform.
Well,
It's very like it's Obama.
he hasn't really asserted a platform. Let's switch gears to the Republicans because you said something earlier that I wanted to touch on. You said that for things to change, Republicans are going to have to stand up and be maybe more independent minded. Okay. Boy, I would love to see that day. I've been asking you every time we talk, when is that going to happen? Last time we talked about how so much of it is tied up to who controls the purse strings. The party leaders control the purse strings. Therefore, the rank and file can never stray from the dominant position of the party leaders. Okay. Well, who in the Republican Party has stood up to accept Biden's president-elect status?
I don't know if I know one. I think
Mitt
Dan.
Romney is the only one.
Oh yeah, okay, that's right. I
George
did see that
W.
today.
Bush came out today before any Senate Republicans did. So here's my point. Trump is still the leader of the Republican Party. He's the most popular Republican in the entire country, and what he says goes. And he can threaten you. He can threaten your seat. He can threaten your funding. He can turn your constituency against you. Okay? That is not going to change when he quits being president. I feel like most certainly he will remain the most popular Republican in America. And so he's going to be a threat to all these people. And so I think it's going to be a while before any civic-minded Republican just stands up and says what he really feels and decides to cross the aisle and work with somebody for the betterment of America.
Yeah, man.
That's the problem, man. That's
It
the
is.
problem, dude.
It's a bleak outlook, really, but it's true. Because he's, I mean, God only knows how this whole thing's going to play out in the end. But if let's say he goes and starts his own media company or whatever the hell the little rumors are right now. But yeah, he'll continue to wield that power, because it's like all of those Trumpers that ride around with his flag on the back of their truck, they're not just going to be like, oh, okay, he's not president anymore. I mean, they're like attached to that person, and
Yeah.
to the point, like I'm saying, like we have 4 years to change everything. And that's what's so daunting, because I don't think anything's going to really change fundamentally, but that's what we have, because in 2024, either he or his son or his daughter could run, and those people are going to still be full on with him, with all of this, rhetoric on their side. So yeah, I mean, that's something to consider. I don't
Well,
know.
if the Democrats don't embrace a couple big ideas like the ones I discussed earlier, it's going to be to their own detriment, and it's going to be to America's detriment. It's like we need the adults in the room to go ahead and take over for, maybe 2 years, and just get the path corrected, get the ship on the right route again. And if that doesn't happen, this more of the same that is causing all this unrest in the first place is going to continue for 4 more years. And then we're going to, like you said, they're going to get something worse than Trump in 4 years. And we may miss our opportunity to ever ride our course if we don't do it right now. And that's why it's so important to us to keep their feet to the fire, talk to our friends and family members about what we want and what we need, and really write and call our senators and congressmen. It still really is important.
Yeah, I think that is such a big part of it, is that thing that you do, which is writing and calling them. And people, I think like, oh, they don't care, they're not going to listen, but they do. I think. I mean, I guess you could probably make the better argument because you do it, but and people, I think there's a lot of people who do that actually, because it does happen. So, but I think there's like this civic duty that has been has kind of gone by the wayside, and it's that one.
But
It's
you
holding your
have
leaders accountable to
you have
you
to
as
let
a
your wishes
constituent.
be known, man. And they do tabulate those calls, on what they're getting calls about, how many calls they're getting. Because I've heard Congress people say, I haven't gotten any calls at all about that.
Mm.
And they're saying that to where that's not really that important of an issue. That's how they gauge public passion. It might be one of the main ways they gauge public passion. And the corollary to that is all the corporate lobbyists and everything, and corporate donors and everything, who are in their ear all the time, putting one thing in their ear. We need to counteract that with our public plan, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah.
Um, it's tedious, it's old fashioned, but I don't know any other way to do it. I think a phone call to a congressman's office, telling them you're a constituent, telling them your name, and telling them either what legislation you want them to support or just saying that we need more stimulus money or whatever, and tell them you're a small business owner, tell them you're a regular voting constituent, uh, that is so much more effective and powerful than just signing an online petition, which is basically the biggest thing most people do. Okay, y'all sign that petition. Y'all sign it.
That
It's
takes me
it's
like 2 seconds to
Yeah,
do.
but that is just futile, dude. I think they know how lazy people are, and if you're really gonna get motivated to make a phone call, they're gonna be like, okay, this is like 2 million signatures of a petition, this one phone call. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's just a friendly reminder. We really need to do stuff like that. We can be influential, you know, by talking about things, calling out inaccuracies, misinformation, and you know, we're a lot more influential than we think we are. And
Well, this
the
this
only thing the only thing that's going to save us is ourselves. Okay, this is really what I really wanted to get to at the end, at the bottom of my kind of rambling right there. The only thing that's going to save us is ourselves. They're not going to save us unless we command them to save us. So the ball's in our court, dude. This is
Mhm.
what most people don't realize. It's the ball's in our court. We have the power. We have the choice. We have the choice whether or not to exert that power or to just do nothing.
Yeah, and I guess
Serious, dude.
the last thing I would say is that this is, at least you could say this election has accomplished that, is to show that your vote does count. If things are coming down to, you know, 5,000 votes, when you're talking like 10 million people, and
Mm-hmm.
it comes down to 5,000 votes, I'm talking like one state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is an incredible advertisement for the power that you have in the poll, in in the polling place, and in the public polling place. And so, yeah, I think this is something we're going to continue to discuss. And we're, I guess, I feel like we're on a precipice. Let's see where it goes. I hope that we can continue to see people coming out and supporting, these measures, because we do need it, and we do need these big changes.
We need people to pay attention, and we care. We need more people paying attention, more people caring, and then that needs to be followed by more civic engagement. And once again, that could be writing editorials to your newspaper, calling your congressman, talking to your coworkers, talking to your family members. This is the moment, America. I mean, you can tell I'm passionate about this. I really still care about this country. Not like I wouldn't, but it's we got to do something, dude, and it's up to us. We're kind of middle age, and it's up to us to help, man.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
can't just do nothing, dude. If we do nothing, it's gone. It's gone.
Well, I guess we can end it on that note. And so thank you everyone for listening. If you're out there, please do check us out at all of the podcasting platforms. You can check us out at YouTube at By the Corner. And we'll see you next time. Got any other final things to say, Shane?
Let's
Yes.
make let's make 2021 better than 2020.
Amen to that. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great time.